All right. Can you see the clock?
I can see the clock.
You're on the air.
Okay. Hi, everybody. It's Paula. This is the Common Book Show. I'm here today with James and Brian and Greg, and Richard is coming as in a minute as soon as he figures out where he's going. Okay. So today I was listening to a very questionable list of quotes on YouTube, and it was the audio sounded very suspiciously like it was being read by a computer. So the thing is, I'm not sure. I tried to check some of these, one in particular. I tried to check a quote because it didn't sound right. It sounded like it might have been a movie quote or something instead of a quote by Al Capone. All right. So these were, for some reason, on this audio, they were playing quotes that would inspirational quotes, and some of them were Al Capone. You know what I mean? But the one I found, and here is Richard. Richard is plugging in his phone.
It was on the radio.
Richard's here. So it was on it's on YouTube. So I listen to YouTube when I'm in the bathtub. That's how okay. So this is the quote that really caught my attention, and I couldn't find it anywhere else on the internet to verify that it's actually an Al Capone quote. But I liked it so much that I thought I would start the show with it. This is supposedly, now remember, grain of salt here, Al Capone. It says, "I can't pass judgment on any man. Only God can do that. All I can do is arrange an introduction." Okay, you get it? I mean, he's going to knock him off and he's going to introduce him to God. I just thought that was a great quote, and I couldn't find verification of that anywhere else, except this.
That could be real, maybe.
Except this questionable thing on YouTube. But there were a few others that I did verify, and one is, I'm a kind person. I'm kind to everyone. But if you are unkind to me, then kindness is not what you'll remember me for.
He was honest.
Yeah, I guess so. So it says, "The country wanted booze and I organized it. Why should I be called a public enemy?"
It's true too, though.
It is true. It's very true. Okay, and then there's two more. The last one I'm saving for last because I want Richard. I want it. It's something that Richard and I have talked about a lot of times. So okay, the second last one is about hell. It says, "Hell must be a pretty swell spot, because the guys that invented religion have sure been trying hard to keep everybody else out." All right, now this one I thought Richard might find interesting. "Capitalism is the legitimate racket of the ruling class." I thought that was brilliant.
That's interesting. You know, when Francis Ford Coppola was putting together The Godfather, and he was getting actors to act in it,
Yeah.
and he didn't say to them, "I'd like you to be in this movie. It's a gangster movie." He would say to them, "I want you to be in this movie. On the surface, it's a gangster movie, but it's really about capitalism."
Oh.
Wow.
It sort of meshes with that Al Capone quote.
Yeah. You know, I wonder if he actually read that quote and thought, you know, that's a brilliant quote, because it's true. I mean, look, it's a racket because they're keeping people in line. You know, the proletariat are being kept in line, and they are working specifically to make them rich, and they're passing down a couple bucks to them in the meantime to keep them alive, but not enough to make them go someplace else and be independent and liberated. You know, so
here's a cartoon. Capitalism is the best because it rewards hard work and innovation. You monopolized the insulin supply and forced diabetics to pay $500 a month. Yes, and that was very difficult to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I was listening to a little Plato as well when I was listening to, doing the dishes. Everything I do, I just put some quotes on and I listen to them, and they spark thought. And the whole idea of the philosophers being the ruling class. I mean, it's really it goes against democracy, because what Plato was saying, that the plebeians should not have any say in what happens in the government, because he felt that they were not capable of making.
They weren't educated.
They weren't educated. They did not know the choices that to make, because they didn't have the information or the knowledge. And that then there was another one in between the plebeians and the philosophers. The I guess it was the merchant class.
Right.
I don't remember if he gave them any rights or anything.
That sounds right. Yeah.
But
Greece was all about shipping stuff everywhere.
Okay, so do you think that the people that we look up to, and the philosophers and writers and people who think things out and think deeply, would you call that a class of philosophers, even if they don't consider themselves philosophers, like the liberals who are weighing the consequences of all these actions, like climate change and poverty, trying to help poverty and all these things? Would you call would you think that Plato would refer to that class as the philosopher class?
This ties into something in a dialogue I'm having with the mystery guest.
Okay.
The mystery guest says that the most important thing to help society is education.
Okay.
And I'm composing an email back to him saying, well, there's a lot of forms of education.
Sure.
When you were driving down here, those billboards you saw on the expressway were education.
Right.
When you watch a movie, that's education.
Mm-hmm.
See, when you watch the news, that's education.
Right.
So it needs clarification, sort of like what you're saying. Except instead of calling it philosophers, I'm calling it education.
Mm-hmm.
Like, people are teaching you ideas in the way philosophers taught ideas all the time. But the question is which are the good ones and which are not good ones?
Right. So I think that we've done a disservice to education, as far as I'm concerned, not teaching the classics anymore, because everything I listen to from Marcus Aurelius, Plato, Seneca, all of these people, it still makes, well, except for the part about the gods. I mean, depending on who you're listening to, they're all saying the fate and the gods. There is a modicum of truth to this idea of fate. Like, things happen without reason or without there being any control over it. But most of the things they're saying are things that are universal ideas and knowledge that can be built upon. And nobody can build upon those ideas without first being introduced to those ideas, unless they're a genius and they've come up with these ideas on their own. But how would they come up with these ideas if they weren't exposed to something that triggered that? So, by repressing that kind of knowledge, we are stunting the intellectual growth of individuals. And I think that why couldn't there be a 2-year classics education before you start your education for something else? I mean, even if you're going to be a craftsman, wouldn't those ideas come in handy about Stoicism and just the ideas of gratitude and acceptance and thinking about death and all those things that you get from the Stoics, wouldn't that be of value to anyone, even a plumber? I don't get why we don't. I do get it, I think, and it's a very cynical path I'm going to take here. I think that the ruling class does not want to create critical thinkers.
Oh, no.
Yeah, they want people to be
Keep people stupid and malleable, and you can mold them.
stupid, drunk, drugged up, and satisfied and passive. Keep them that way. Except
And distracted.
right, except we're
I think
right.
that's one of the key things.
Except now that we've got all these people running around who know absolutely squat about anything, they're becoming very dangerous. We've got more mass shootings this year than we have days in the year.
Right.
So all these people are just going wild.
I have a recommendation on how to reduce mass shootings.
I do too, but go ahead, you first.
Here's how you reduce them. You make owning a gun the same as driving a car. You have to have a license.
Mm-hmm.
To get a gun license, you have to pay $1,000 fee to be considered for it.
Yeah.
And in your application, every person in your household has to sign an affidavit saying that they trust you with a gun. Both your neighbors on both sides of you have to sign an affidavit that they trust you with a gun. And everyone where you work has to sign an affidavit that they trust you with a gun. If somebody...
Okay, so there'd be no more guns or very few.
Well, the thing is, I think I agree
Yeah.
with you on all of those counts, except I think that the $1,000, I think that it depends on what kind of gun. I don't think AR-15 rifles should be, I don't think that these military style rifles should have any place in non-military world. But certain people, okay, if you're a cab driver and you're driving a cab, you may want some protection because
I was a cab driver for a couple years.
yeah, the thing is you may want some protection, and a cab driver couldn't necessarily afford $1,000 fee in order to own a gun. But if he had everybody like in his family and his neighbors and his coworkers sign off on it, I think that would be an excellent idea. Yes, we think he's a responsible person.
Well, the reason I put the $1,000 in there,
yeah.
you need a staff of people to call the people who wrote the affidavits to make sure they're not
Right.
forged.
Right. So you need a
So you need a labor force.
yeah. Okay, yeah, that's true. That's true. Plus, if
there's people who would just fake it. There's people who sign their own report cards, So there's going to be people who fake these affidavits.
yeah, I used to do that.
Well, for starters, I think Australia did it right after those two big shootings that they had there, which were pretty unusual for Australia.
Uh-huh.
And they took away all military-style heavy-duty rifles, and everyone was allowed to own hunting rifles, regular hunting rifles and shotguns, like they always have in Australia. They have ranches and big farms, big ranches. They've always had firearms, but you had to register those firearms. And if you had a history of assault on your wife or your kids, or you were violent, or you had a felony record, boom, no guns.
Yeah, but the
guns.
thing in this country, we have gun shows where you can just walk in and buy a gun with nothing. You just buy a gun, you trade a gun, you buy a gun, you just, you walk out with a gun.
They're starting to clamp down on that, but it's still true, yeah.
Yeah, and we have gun shows like other people have gem shows. You just walk in and buy something and walk out. And until we have some kind of regulation on, I think that it's pretty obvious that we have too many guns. I don't think that. I don't know, James. You have a lot of unusual ideas. What do you think?
I disagree with you.
Okay, tell me why.
Well, if you read the Constitution, it does say that no laws abridging gun ownership. So anything like what you guys are talking about is technically against the so-called supreme law of the land.
Well, the Second Amendment it allows for people to hold guns, but not against their country. You know, this is what's, yeah.
It has to do with arming a militia, doesn't it?
Well,
Militias, yeah.
but
By the way, do you know what that was about, that whole militias thing?
no.
Hunting down runaway slaves.
Oh wow. Ha. Now,
that
now there you
interesting?
go.
Isn't that interesting?
But also fight, killing Native Americans and taking over their land,
Well,
and they needed militias for that.
I don't still James. My cousin Kathy said something to me that was kind of not similar to what you're saying, but she kept saying, "Oh, they're always talking about these AR, is it 15 AR-15s, and they're not really military guns." And I know they're not, but they're repeating guns. Is there a reason why we need a gun like that in circulation in this country? It's the only. It's not a hunting weapon. It's not. I mean, it's beyond keeping yourself safe in your home or in your vehicle. It's more. You wouldn't need, if somebody was attacking you, you wouldn't need to spray them with fire. You could one bullet.
No, wouldn't it?
Depends on what they have.
Well, it would depend, but the thing is, it doesn't make sense for us to have military firearms. I mean,
All right, can I respond to James's comment on the Constitution, because I disagree?
All right, go ahead.
I've been waiting to hopefully respond to what he said about the Constitution. Yeah, I value the Constitution, of course. I'm an American. I was born an American. I love my country. I admire our country. It's the greatest country in the world for what humans have built. We got a lot of warts and a lot of flaws, but it's still an amazing fucking country. And we got a lot of problems, but there's a lot worse countries, and there's some maybe nicer to live in too, like in Europe maybe. But anyway, times have changed, James. Times have changed. There was only like 10, 20 million people back when they wrote the Constitution. We're going toward 400 million Americans, and there's fucking guns everywhere. People can all kill each other.
It's so funny.
Something's got to be done, and if they got to put a little, change the laws a little bit, I mean, they're going to have to do it, man, because kids shouldn't have to go to school, or people go to their Baptist church down, whatever, and worry about getting blown away at church service or their kid getting killed in school. Man, that's fucking insane.
I think
it's
I have.
Fucking insane.
I think I have a quote from one of the founding fathers, if I kept it on here, talking about how the Constitution is a living organism and is meant to develop with the times.
I mean, that's 248 years ago.
Remember, those people had just finished revolting against their governmental authorities. So they wrote it that way.
Sure.
And Jefferson himself has said that the tree of freedom needs to be watered with the blood of patriots every now and then. So, yeah, as far as my understanding of the Founder Fathers go, the point of people having whatever firearms that they want is to make sure.
Yeah, but there were no firearms like that when the Constitution was written. There was no firearm that could take out 11 people.
They were single-shot muskets.
My had the same firearms that the military had. Does the military have repeating shooting guns?
Okay. All right. So
They
let's
do.
see.
Yeah, but do you really think? I think it's way overblown in this country.
I found the quote. Jefferson to Adams.
Okay, go for it.
Jefferson to Adams in a letter says, "Some men look at constitutions with sanctimonious reverence and deem them, like the Ark of the Covenant, too sacred to be touched. They ascribe to the men of the preceding age a wisdom more than human, and suppose that what they did to be beyond amendment. I knew that age well. I belonged to it and labored with it. It deserved well of its country. He is saying that the Constitution is a template, and that as we grow and as we develop as humans and Americans, that we need to make amendments in order to keep up with the times. Jefferson was saying Jefferson to Adams in a letter, and so I'm glad I saved that on my phone, because that's how the intelligent, liberal-minded people that founded this country thought. I mean, I know they were slave owners. I know they weren't perfect. I know there were, but even Jefferson knew that times change, and he spent a lot of time writing the Constitution and working on the revisions. And so, let's face it, I feel, yes, when only slingshots were available to men as weapons, slingshots were used in war, and slingshots were used by people protecting themselves from bears. Yes, that's true. But this is a different time. We live in a war mongering period where we have. Okay, so James, would it be okay for people to own nuclear weapons, have an arsenal?
Yeah.
Yes. Oh,
No
boy.
way.
I don't want to visit your garage.
I don't even trust the militaries with them.
Your garage is going to be a scary
I don't
place.
trust the military with them because
No,
they're just people too.
I don't either. But I mean, I was trying to make a point, but you're
The
pretty.
very point.
You're
If the military has them, then we should have them, because the people that we need to keep in check are the police and the military. So there you go.
Well,
yeah, maybe the police, but
yeah.
dude,
I
the
don't
military
even
is
agree.
made up of regular people from our country, 99%. They're guys from Arkansas, Louisiana, Texas, and
it's
New
true,
York.
and I think there has to be an element of brainwashing in order for people to go out into the world and kill people. There has to be an element of brainwashing in our military, and I consider your man card reissued. Yes, so I think to myself, when my nephew Michael was going into the Navy and he was young, I sat him down and I said, just pretend they've gotten to you. Pretend. Just go along with it. Because if you don't pretend, they will get to you. And they will brainwash you. And then you will be a changed man. If you want to remain the man you are when you go in, just pretend they got to you. Pretend that you are all about whatever they tell you that you have to do until it's something that crosses the line. And then you have to make a stand. But if it's just regular shit where they're yelling in your face, just let them yell in your face, because that's what they're going to do. There is an element of brainwashing, but James, don't you think there's an element of brainwashing in all of these little militia groups that these kids, they're recruiting these kids who don't have other social outlets, or they don't have any structure in their lives, and they're looking for some structure? Don't you think there's brainwashing going on there too? How about the Taliban? Don't you think there's brainwashing going on among those people?
Oh man, cool. That was a cool ad.
Yeah. I mean, even when I was a kid, parents were already starting to say we shouldn't give our boys guns. Now it's real guns. They just take them out of the closet.
Yeah, because idiots don't secure their weapons like they should.
I don't know. I can't. I just can't. I can't absorb any more mass shootings this year. I just can't absorb it. They're. Do you think they're? Do you think that the mass shootings are? I mean, what do you think about that, James? How do you think we have to address that problem? There is a problem, isn't there?
Got the CIA's budget, and you'll probably take care of most of the mass shootings.
I don't see that's. I think I don't know what you listen to, but I don't agree with your sources because, yes, of course, the CIA. There's always problems with any bureaucracy. There's always going to be a problem in a bureaucracy. But I don't think the CIA is causing these mass shootings. These are done by individuals, and if there was some kind of a subplot, we would have figured that somebody would have turned them in at this point.
Yeah,
if anyone, it's got to be the Republicans, man. They're funding it to keep chaos, and they can say, "Look, the Democrat-run cities are like a hellscape."
I don't think that the Republicans want to have to fight. Think about the gun can do nothing with a human. Yeah, I know, Mick, but. They're pretty soon they're going to be guns that shoot themselves. I mean, we're in the AI age
I say
now.
you train all kids starting in kindergarten, and they all bring pistols to school. Arm everyone. That's obviously the solution.
How high will the death rate be if that happens?
Yeah, whatever. You lose a feeling. God.
Yeah,
It's crazy, man.
We're the
More
only,
people.
We're the only first world country that has this problem, and that the reason for it is because of the guns. And I don't care what you say, Mick. I don't care what James. I appreciate your point of view. I know that you think differently than I do, but I don't agree with you. I don't have to agree with you to appreciate your point of view.
I agree with you on that.
Yeah. Okay. So
Don't have to agree with you to take your voice.
my cousin Kathy has got some similar views that they scare the living shit out of me, and I try not to get in those conversations with her because it blows my mind that somebody that I'm so close to, like a sister, has such a differing view, and I don't want to get to that point where we're polarized. We agree on so much, so.
Does she have firearms?
I don't think she does.
I was going to say, if she does, don't piss her off.
No. I mean, she's a very loving, kind person. She would never hurt anyone intentionally, and yet she has some right wing views that make me nervous. But anyway. We've been on this subject for a long time, so I don't think we're gonna the six.
What does Greg think?
Greg, what do you think about guns, Greg?
Greg, are you thinking right now?
Guns bad?
Am I thinking right now? Yeah. Yes, I'm thinking right now. Not about guns though. Guns are bad.
Okay.
You're right, Paul. That's a good way of putting it.
You don't have to agree with me.
No, I think guns can be bad.
And
That's a good way of putting it.
And can they be good?
They can be good for self-protection if you're being attacked by somebody.
I'm not totally
They're fun to
against
shoot.
guns. I've shot guns. I've gone out on target practice and stuff. I don't dislike
Then
guns.
you started driving a taxi late at night all around town, in all the different sections,
Well,
all
I'm starting
different
to think
areas.
of you as Annie Oakley. I didn't
Paula
know about
Oakley.
all
You
that.
know what? At Crystal Beach, remember Crystal Beach? I would go to the shooting range where they had the things going back and forth, and I'd have people like
Ducks.
behind me, like a big crowd of people watching me because I'd be bing bing, and I'd be getting them, and I didn't even realize anybody was around me until I finished, and then I looked around.
Because you were the Zen
I was in
archer.
the zone. I really like the idea of pointing the gun and shooting it, but not at human beings or animals. I mean, I know people eat animals and they shoot them. And
You eat
that's
animals,
fine.
too.
I do.
So just shoot them
I
because
have
you eat them
nev-
already.
I have never shot a chicken.
But you want to though.
I don't.
You
want
don't
to.
shoot them, you just chop their head off.
Right. Just chop their head off. You don't have to shoot them.
I'm not
with
doing
an
Easy,
that.
axe.
easy peasy, Japanesey. Oh, you can't say that because that's on woke to say Japanesey. Easy
Yeah, we
peasy,
shouldn't talk
bleezy,
animal
wheezy.
mutilation either.
Yeah. Okay. So let's.
Well-
Richard hasn't had a chance to touch on anything on his list yet. Go ahead.
I found an interesting cartoon that I sent to people showing idols through the ages. So they had the people worshiping the golden calf
Yeah.
and all these other things. And the last one is people worshiping a giant cell phone. So I sent it to all my religious friends.
Yeah.
And I said, is there any validity to this cartoon? And I got responses back from people.
Yeah.
This is my favorite response. What advice would you give to this person?
Okay.
I like the cartoon. You know, it applies to my life. I just came back from a walk along the river with my wife. She had in her earphones during the whole walk. I'm actually glad we did not have to talk, because when we talk, she usually complains about all the things I have to fix around the house.
How would I advise this person? All right. For me, this is what I can take suffering for about a year. If I'm suffering, if I'm in a relationship that's a bad relationship, I can try to fix it for about a year. But if in fact after that year nothing is helping, then I have to leave that situation. That's how I would advise this person. This is not working for you. There's somebody, or, I mean, they've got to find a way to compromise. Maybe he's a lazy jerk who doesn't do anything around the house, and the only way she feels she can get anything done is to nag, which obviously isn't working. They're not communicating. How are they communicating? She's not listening, and he is not paying attention. Something's wrong. Something is desperately wrong with that relationship.
How about you, James? What advice would you give to that man?
Enjoy the silence.
Wow, good one.
But what if
Yeah, isn't there like a canary in a coal mine situation here, that this is a sign that there's something wrong?
But couldn't it just be two people? Sorry, James.
you said isn't he married? That wouldn't work for me at all. That would not work for me at all.
What do you mean wouldn't work for you?
That kind of non-communication, yeah.
She's the one who's choosing to be non-communicative.
Right, she's being non-communicative, but obviously there's something wrong, because a lot of times, if you notice, when somebody's complaining, there's a subtext that they're not saying out loud. They're not saying what they really mean. They're just talking about what's comfortable enough to talk about, like you haven't fixed the faucet. When in fact there's other things going on, where you are there's something lacking in the trust department, or there's something lacking in the emotional intimacy department, and you don't know how to talk about that. So instead you'd say, fix the fucking faucet. So, I mean, I'm not blaming the guy, because the guy might not have any idea what's bugging her, because she's not saying it. So she's not communicating. You're right.
That happens.
But the guy needs to, maybe talk about, say, hey, what's really wrong with you? What's going on? I mean, there's going to be a difficult conversation, but if you can save the relationship, if there's enough of it to save, why not? But people don't need to be in a relationship to be happy. Sometimes actually being out of a relationship is better. So
I have a question.
Hey, Richard.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
What?
Oh, I was just thinking, couldn't it be just two people? Like, she likes to listen to music and walk by the river, and he doesn't mind just walking by himself.
And
letting her enjoy her music for a half hour, and then they talk when they get home.
But that's not what he said in the response to him.
Right. She's always nagging, complaining.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
I guess that's true.
James, what was your question?
How does a man hold a woman accountable today?
Well, what do you mean by that?
Yeah. How does he say to her, are you taking responsibility for putting in those earphones during our river walk?
That could be one way he could attempt to hold her accountable.
Yeah. So I mean, the thing is, I don't think anybody should stay in a bad relationship unless they're willing to work on it and fix it. If there's something to save or save it for, you know.
But
the what?
You cut out
the
there.
point I am making here
Yeah.
is that he can't hold her accountable.
Why can't
hold her
he?
accountable?
What he
You
do
mean he can't address
to
it
get
to her because she'll just get mad? Like,
I don't agree with that. I think
yes, basically anything that he
well, then that relationship is
anything he does,
Oh, too bad he cuts out. He's always cutting out right at the wrong word.
yeah. I think that if you can't talk about what the problems that there, you know, I know people who are in relationships where the communication has ceased. The guy can't say anything to the woman can't say anything to the guy because all they do is get angry and react. I don't know how to fix that. I have a name of somebody who is not a couples counselor but does arbitration, who does couples arbitration, and I've given that name to several people because they are not communicating and they need somebody in the middle to help them to be their interpreter because they're not communicating. And if I'm doing something, I mean, Greg always tells me when I'm doing something that's annoying, and then I try to stop it. I'm not always good at it, but you know, if I'm doing something that I can try to control, I try, but I'm not going to be perfect, and we try, you know, we talk about it. Do we talk about it?
Talk about what?
Do we talk about things when things are bothersome?
Yeah, but you know, like when you scream "fuck" in the kitchen over and over, I told you about that.
I know, and I'm trying to be better. Am I better?
That's why I was scared of you going in the basement, because then I hear "fuck, fuck, fuck."
Yeah, I get frustrated very easily because I can't
Is
do
this
things.
that kind of primal therapy where you
No,
get out your...
I don't say fuck just for nothing. It's usually because I can't find something or something's too heavy for me. So my physicality limits me, and I can't do certain things, and I get frustrated because I'm used to being able to do more physically than I can do now. So it frustrates
eventually
me.
you could just get a robot to do all that physical stuff.
It's very expensive.
Yeah, I think we'll have to
The
wait
price
for
will come down.
We'll have to wait for the
Not in
Wal-
our lifetime.
the
It's going to be very
Walmart
expensive in our
robot.
lifetime.
Now,
We're running out of time. We're not only years left to own robots.
Yeah.
I was going to bring up robots. Mr. Walker.
They'll be the only things left after global warming's done.
Now, Mr. Walker, are you implying that there's no way that the man could say to the woman, what's the reason you're wearing these earbuds during our time by the river? If he said it, she would bite his head off? Is that what you're saying?
I'm saying that he says something like that at his own peril. Yes.
Yeah, but then you talk about it, even if it's an argument. At least you're saying it out loud. You know, you're saying it to her, and then if she starts screaming, you can say something back like, "I just want to know what the problem is so I can fix it."
Now,
because it will make things better.
Well, no, because if you do talk about it, you can figure out what the problem is and you can compromise. That's the whole. That's a relationship compromise.
Being.
What's that?
You can only figure out what the problem is if she's willing to communicate like an adult.
Exactly.
Which she is not doing.
Well, and he's not either.
He knows that she will tell him what she wants him to know. The rest, she expects him to read her
Yeah,
mind.
but that is a very, very bad plan. And I've spoken to women about this a lot, where, you know, you cannot expect a man to think like a woman. They don't. We don't think alike. So if there's something bothering you, you can't assume like that he's going to understand that you're feeling bad like a woman would with that kind of empathy. Women are different than men, and that's fine. But you have to spell it out. You have to say, this thing you said to me made me feel like this. I don't think you meant it like that, but that's how it made me feel. And that's how you have to say it. You can't say, if you don't know what you did, then I'm not going to tell you, because that's ridiculous. That's stupid.
And what women do.
Well,
now, I wish much more women like you telling women like that to stop that shit.
Well, I do, and I also tell men that you can't wait 5 days after you've had sex with a woman to call her, because then the next time you call her, she thinks it's a booty call. Men have stupid ideas too.
But then if you call them like the next day sometimes, or even 2 days later, they think you're really desperate and they don't want you.
No, that's bullshit.
No. I'm telling you.
I am telling you right now, if you have sex with a woman,
you gotta wait 3 days.
If you have sex with a woman and you don't call her the next day or send her flowers or tell her what a great time you had, and you don't have to be desperate and say, oh, honey, I can't wait to see you again. You just say, you know what? I had a great time last night.
That's a horrible thing to say.
You see, that's why you're having problems, James.
This is getting good tonight.
We have an author of a book on how to deal with women. Let's ask the author. Mr. Author, how long
Greg?
does one wait after sex to communicate with the woman?
Probably 20 minutes.
I was going to say minutes, yeah.
It's about 20 minutes.
And what are some things that can be said that you would recommend?
Oh, I recommend talking about her personality. 20 minutes later, I like the fact that you're smart and personable and creative and charismatic.
Yeah. I mean, that is.
Could you say that again? I want to write that down.
Smart and personable and creative and charismatic. I'm going to give you a copy of the book as soon as we have it out in August, Brian. You're going to get the copy of it. You're going to get the first copy, Brian.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. So.
It's too bad you didn't have it when you were in your 20s, know?
Okay. All right.
Thanks.
You could have went
can't
so
take me back
far.
in the time machine?
James, let me tell you the story about my friend Tim. And I'm calling him Tim because that's his actual name. And
I know his last name. Should I mention his last name or just skip that?
no, skip his last name.
Okay.
So
Tim S.
Tim
X.
was my friend since I was a senior in high school, right? And Tim had a crush on me for many years, and finally I convinced him it wasn't going to happen. And so he started going out and he started dating, and he was already divorced. And he met this woman, and they really hit it off. Like, first night they went. It was at one of those goofy dances that nobody really meets anybody at. They went to this dance. They were hanging out together. They were talking. They were laughing. They went out. It was a nice weather. They went out by the river. They sat by the river. They talked and they laughed. They were getting drunk. They were having a great time. They ended up having sex the same night. So my friend Tim calls me up and he says, I met this great woman. She's great. And she was so attractive and so funny and so smart. And now he says, I'm not going to call her for 3 days. I said, if you don't call this, he said, and I'm not even sure if I want to call her at all. And I said, what the hell?
I can picture him saying this
I said,
somehow.
what the hell are you talking about? You're not going to call her at all. And he said, well, she had sex with me on the first date. And I said, so what you're telling me is you want a woman who doesn't like sex. I said, it's okay for you to have sex on the first date, but it's not okay for her. I said, you really feel that this was something special and you two hit it off and you spent all these hours together just bonding and feeling good about each other. And then it ended up in sex, and you're telling me that this makes her a slut? I said, there's something wrong with the way you're thinking. And I said, and now this is what you do. You like this woman. I said, was the sex okay? He says, it was great. I said, good. Then you have to, this is what you do. You call her. You get off the phone with me right now. You call her right now and you say, Betty Sue, or whatever. Betty Sue, I had a great time. I think I really, really connected with you, and I think you're really special. Let's make plans to go out again. Just let me know when you're available. He married her. Not that day. but he
He took
Later that week-
your advice.
he wanted to throw her to the side because she had sex with him on the first night, because that was what he was told all of his life since he was a child, that's a bad
I
girl.
would never do that, though.
No,
I don't have a problem
I mean,
with it.
this guy was he's very conservative. That's one of the reasons I couldn't go out with
Okay.
him. So he's very
Because if I'm having sex with her, I'm doing the same thing she is. Why would I look down on her?
right, but
Yeah.
that's a very different attitude, Brian, than most men have. So first he's going to throw her under the bus because she had sex with him on the first date, even though he had a blast with her and he really liked her and she was funny and smart and intelligent. And then he wasn't going to call her for 3 days. And I said, screw that. Whoever told you that was full of shit. I'm telling you from a woman's perspective. She wants to hear that you just didn't use her for sex. She wants to hear that you have feelings for her, and he did. And I within about a year they were married.
Now, so they're married to this day?
They're married.
And what's your vibe?
Well, I didn't know
Are
that.
they happily married?
Well, they've been happily married for the most part. She has MS, so she's not
that sucks.
she's not doing well physically now. But they're together still, and he's happy, and he does, he's taken over a lot of the difficult things in the household because she can't do it anymore. But they're together, and he loves her, and it's difficult now because she's sick. But that's what happens, people get sick. And if you care about them, you're there. So
Now, Brian, how long is your waiting period after the intimacy?
There is no, I don't believe in set scales like that. Every human being's different. Every woman I met was different.
I think,
I have done exactly what Paula recommended and called the next day and just said briefly, I had a great time. I really liked you. Let's get together again. And then we might have gone out one more time in a few days or whatever. And then she broke it off. And then a couple women even told me they felt like, oh, you came on too strong. And I thought you were too serious. And I was like, what? I was just telling you I cared about, I liked you. No, I didn't say care about him.
yeah.
But I liked you, and it was great meeting you. We had a great time last night, whatever, and they took it the wrong way.
Yeah, I don't.
So
If I had
it's
I
happened
had
to me
ever
more than a couple times.
If I had ever had a situation where, let's say I had a few dates with somebody, and then we ended up having sex, and they didn't call me the next day, I wouldn't answer their call. That would be it.
Right.
I would never talk to them again.
Yeah, I can see that. But to answer Richard's question, I play it by ear, depending on how I think the person, what they expect, what kind of person they are, how I, think they are, and how it went and everything. If they're a lot like me, I might be a little more casual and just maybe not call the next day, but call 2 days later and say, oh, I've been thinking about you a lot. I want to see you again. And they usually get a good reaction.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I think that I think women connect well. Maybe women of my generation or the next generation, we connect sex with relationship. So,
oh yeah, definitely.
So if there's sex and unless I don't know what girls do now. I am beyond having friends that are in their early 20s.
Well, I could tell you, Paula, because my son started telling me when he was 18 or 17 about how things were when he was in high school. And I can tell you we're nothing like when I was in high school. And he said girls would actually call them up. And I'm just relating what he told me. And this was not uncommon in the Albany area where he grew up through high school mostly. And they would say, we have a big bag of weed and a couple bottles of vodka. Do you want to come over and get fucked up and screw? And I almost passed out when he told me that, because I said, Nicholas, do you know how hard it was for us to even get with girls? Do you know how hard we had to work? Like, and they called you up and said, yeah, we want to get drunk, stoned, and fuck.
Yeah,
And they
well-
brought it to you?
Yeah, well, I just think that
Everything.
it's maybe it's just a new generation where women feel empowered, and there's
I
not as
guess.
much stigma. You know, there was a lot of stigma when I was younger to, sleeping around. It wasn't, it was okay for guys, it just wasn't okay for girls,
You were in a very Catholic neighborhood too, though, right?
Well, I grew up in an Italian neighborhood, but it wasn't just my neighborhood. It was all over the media. Like good girls aren't loose and easy, and maybe it's changed, but I don't know, because like I said, I will find out in a few years. My granddaughter's 15. Not that she's going to tell me everything, but things.
Mr. Walker, do you recommend a waiting period?
There's nothing for me to recommend. You have to try your best to read these chicks' minds and roll the dice and see what you get. I have had the same experience where you just make a polite contact to say, I had a good time, I enjoyed myself, hope to see you soon, and that gets you labeled as lame. I've also had it happen.
Well, you don't want the kind of woman who thinks that's lame. You want the kind of woman who thinks that that's nice, that's kind, and that's considerate. You're not looking for the women who are going to look upon niceness as lameness.
Here's the thing that you're not understanding. While it is true, we want this perfect Martha Stewart woman who happens to also be Mia Khalifa in the bedroom, we're dealing with the women that we have available to us. And we are forced to play a game of Minesweeper.
So they're not, I mean, isn't everyone anxious to have someone care about them in their lives? Isn't that what everybody's looking for?
Yeah, but not everybody got.
Right, but that's what I think. I think that most people are looking for someone to think that they're special. I can't. Yeah, I've been when I was younger, I did brush guys that I thought were. There's a lot of guys who are not a good. They're not a good fit, and I can tell just by a few minutes talking to them, because they're either too conservative for me, or they're not creative. They don't have any kind of spark, and yeah, I have in so many words brushed them off in a flippant way, and it's not something that I feel good about now, but I know better now. But those were not the people I would, and it wasn't because of the way they looked. I wasn't looking for.
Well, that was just an honest assessment of whether you really liked their attributes or not, or whatever. We all do that.
And I don't like, if some guy would come up to me and just say, "Hi, my name is Mike," I like that so much better than some guy come up to me and say, "Whoa, you're really something special, baby."
You got it going on.
I would laugh at them and never talk to them because they were players, or they thought they were players, and I wasn't interested in that. So I can tell you though, my girlfriends, the people that I've talked to about this, they all agree that if they have had sex with somebody, that means that they felt that there was something special going on between them, and they want to be called right away so that they don't feel insecure that they were just taken advantage of. I can just give you.
Guys are playing a game of Minesweeper where they have to read minds and try to step as smartly as possible.
Then why not just be direct? I mean,
that's where I'm at now.
Why not just be direct and say,
I'm direct is not a good thing. I'm just saying.
Well, it's a game, though. It's a game, and games are not effective in human relationships. Human relationships are not games; they're serious things.
Paula, can I ask a favor? When I'm speaking, let me put the fucking period on the goddamn sentence before you start talking.
Because
is that something we?
I know, but you're saying the same thing over and over again. That you have to do this certain thing the way you're doing it. Well, is it working?
I'm not saying you have to do a certain thing the way that you're doing it. I'm saying that anything that you say, do, or whatever can and will be used against you, which is why some guys fall into the habit of overthinking everything.
Everything you say will be used against you.
Yeah.
That's like when the police arrest you.
Yeah. See, what you're saying to me is that we're the enemy, and I don't want to be looked upon or treated as the enemy by anybody, because I want, if I, in my friendships and in my relationships, I want to be a valuable person to that other person I'm interacting with. I don't want to just be somebody that you have to outsmart and outbid. You know, I'm not in that place.
You're seeing this the wrong way. It is not that you are someone who is being tricked or outsmarted, and you're definitely not looked at as the enemy. The point is, men find women so valuable that they actually value every encounter with you, and they want to please you. But we can't ask you, pardon me, what would please you?
Why not?
Because that is considered lame. You've just lost Minesweeper.
Who's worried about you being lame? The women or you?
The women.
I don't see that as lame.
Okay. When you were available,
Yes.
and open to the idea of getting into a relationship,
Yes.
how many guys came to you and said something along the lines of, I think you are wonderful. I would like to spend the rest of my life with you. Tell me what your perfect vision of a life would be like so that I can bring that to you.
I wouldn't, but that's not how you talk to a person when you first meet them. When you first meet them, you say, "Hi, my name is Mike,"
I did not say first thing.
Okay.
I said ever. Any guy ever say that to you, and how did you respond?
Well, if I liked them, I would respond. But the thing is, it's usually the guys. What happens is, I had a guy that I dated who was who tried to do everything he copied everything I did in order to have a relationship with me. He copied everything, and
That's weird.
he had no self. And so I wasn't attracted to him.
2 minutes.
Not because he was trying to get me, trying to do everything to please me. It was because he didn't have a self, and I don't like that. I want somebody to have a self, and so I mean that's the only time.
James has a self.
Yeah, you definitely have a self.
He definitely has a self.
I don't think I know anybody with more of a self than you.
Than James. James has the most self of anyone in this picture right now.
I think I think that you're underselling yourself. You know, and I think that if you relaxed a little bit, it might be easier. You're so worried about making that wrong move. Don't.
I'm not. I am just making a statement of truth. It's not like I'm a bull in the frickin' china shop when it comes to women. I'm not worried about the fact that half the things I say are going to trigger them, because that is going to do a good job of self-selecting.
Yeah, that's true. You'll know for sure if they can handle you. You need somebody with a big personality. I'll say that right off the top. You need a big personality to fit you. But we disagree on this, as many things. Anyway, we're going to be out of time in 30 seconds now. So,
Paul, did you notice the guy with the Buffalo Bills hat on said 2-minute warning?
yeah,
When
I
it hit
did.
2 minutes?
I did notice that. He's
The game is almost over tonight.
he's bringing sports.
Did we
into
win?
the
Did we win?
picture
Who
here.
won, James or you, Paula?
Damn it, he
No,
fumbled.
nobody won. We have a different.
I mean,
we have a
if
difference. of
Brian, did
opinion.
James win or did Paula win?
We have a difference
Richard,
on
did
opinion.
James win or did Paula
Maybe-
win?
Richard,
That's
maybe
a
I'll
tough-
bring
I
in
mean-
a team of women, and we can all talk
Paula
about what
is
would
winning.
make us happy. Okay, bye.
Bye.
Have a good night, everyone.
All right, I'm taking my ears off. They're bothering me. Bye, James. Bye, Brian.
Have a good one. I'm glad you survived Porch Fest.
I don't know. I think I can find a team of women coming in discussion.